Welcome back to Importer Insight, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the global import community. I'm your host, Amanda Horney. Today I have with me Giovanni Cavaletto, a seasoned leader in the global avocado supply chain and the current U.S. Division President of GLC Cerritos. Raised on an avocado and lemon farm, Giovanni brings more than 30 years of hands-on experience from field production to marketing and packing house operations. He played a foundational role in shaping industry standards, serving as founding member of the Haas Avocado Board and helping to establish Mejia, the Mexican Haas Avocado Importers Association, as well as the Colombian Avocado Board, and served as on the Peruvian Avocado Commission. Before joining GLC Cerritos in 2023, Giovanni held executive roles at Morningstar Packing and Index Fresh, where he oversaw sourcing and operations. Today, he leads GLC Cerritos' U.S. operations with a focus on sustainability, having completed their first full season of fair trade certified fruit, moving over 2 million pounds and generating meaningful funds for farm worker programs. The company is also innovating in the field with global GLAP certified acreage in Jalisco, Mexico, and electrostatic pollination technology. Recognized by the Packer as one of 2024's Packer 25, Giovanni is a trusted voice helping to shape the future of avocado imports. Welcome, Giovanni.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. So, tell me about growing up on an avocado and lemon farm.
I grew up, the family's been farming on California's Central Coast in Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. And that's where I grew up. It's been quite an evolution from California being 90% of the avocados sold in the United States back when I got started to probably about 10% this year of the avocados sold. So it's been quite a wave, growing from about a 300 million pound, primarily domestic industry to today's 3 billion pound industry with, if I counted it up right, today there's probably 9 different flavors of avocados available in the market.
Yeah, I've heard that Gem is the new up-and-coming variety. Is that true?
Yeah, so right now there's Gem and Lamb out of California, and Hass. There's old crop and new crop coming out of Mexico. There's Peru, Colombia, Dominican Republic, and Florida are just starting on their new crop, just like we are in Mexico with Mendez. And it's there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, this year has definitely been very interesting with a lot of offshore players coming in, and California having its bumper crop, all things considered, or there was more volume than there had been in the past. How did that affect your business over the last few months?
You know, avocados are still really, really heavily dominated by Mexico. So yes, we can talk about that. There's 9 different options in the market right now, but those 9 options last for 10 or 15 weeks. And then the rest of the season is really a Mexican-driven industry. And even during those 10 weeks, we only had 1 week where Mexico was less than 50% of the supply. The addition of Jalisco, where GLC Cerritos farms and packs and ships from, we represent about 15% of Mexico's avocado certified acreage as a state, and really help because a lot of that is going to be in the warmer, lower elevations. Mendez variety, which is basically a Hass, but about 6 weeks earlier. So between being warmer, having the Mendez variety, we're able to make Mexico an even more year-round player. So we're able to shave off about 6 weeks of that transition from old crop to new crop.
That's so interesting. Do you market the Mendez variety as Haas, or is it its own?
It's all, I cannot tell the difference. And I've been in this, as we talked, my whole life. I can tell the difference between a Gem and a Hass, a Lamb and a Hass. I can look at a tree and not tell the difference between a Mendez and a traditional Hass. The tree architecture is the same. The leaf shape is the same. The fruit is the same. The Mendez just happens to be about 6 weeks earlier.
Nice. That definitely gives you an advantage starting out. Are you ready for Loca to start, or have you started? Do you still have some Negra fruit available? Where are you there?
We switch over as soon as we can. It's that, this is a little bit of a nuance, but we talk about Loca, which is we call it off bloom in California, which is a crazy floor Loca, a crazy flower
Mm-hmm.
that blooms when it's not supposed to. And the floor Loca Hass tends to be rounder and a little bit smoother than a regular Hass. Whereas Mendez, this is the main flower, not the off bloom, right? So we overlap the terms because the fruit's available at similar times, but this is technically not a flor loca. This is the primary bloom of the year for the Mendez, and it
Okay.
and it tends to be more of a hash shape. It doesn't have that round, less pebbly nature that you might encounter if you're purchasing pure normal Hass loca.
So I'm assuming that also means it's got better oil content as well as compared to like the Flora Loca.
Yeah, so it gets to the oil content earlier than Hass does, not necessarily earlier than Loca. And what I think the industry has done this year, or the last 2 years now, is a fantastic job in putting some barriers to entry for immature fruit. So now, in order to get a harvest permit, a farmer has to show and bring in samples that the fruit is passing at least 23% dry matter. And if any of the fruits brought in the sample have less than 22 and a half, the grower does not qualify for an import or an export harvest permit. And that was started more formally last year, being continued this year. And I think that's done a good job making sure that there's high quality avocados from Mexico available to the consumer throughout the year.
I agree. I think raising that limit really did help set a bar, a higher standard overall for even our offshore partners. And it's been good for the entire industry. So I'm really glad that that has been in place and will hopefully stay in place. So something that GLC Cerritos is very well known for, you just completed your first season, is being fair trade certified. How do you make sure that that's more than just a label?
Fair trade is great. I talked to a industry colleague, and she was saying that what she really likes about fair trade is that it's a shared responsibility in with the consumer. So a lot of the other compliance issues that retailers might request put the the burden and responsibility of putting them in, whether it's with food safety or social responsibility, all of the costs of those audits are placed on the supplier, right? Whereas with fair trade, it's a shared cost, right? So that there's a fair trade premium that the consumer kind of recognizes when they buy fair trade certified product at the shelves. The retailer agrees to pay the fair trade premium on top of the market price. And then that flows through to a farm worker committee, which really empowers the farm workers they take possession of the funds generated by fair trade, and then they democratically choose how to invest those funds in their community. So last year, we collected nearly $40,000 in fair trade premiums. We have a fair trade committee of farm worker and packing house worker representatives, and they considered a number of different programs and elected to invest the funds in a food dispensary and a water storage project.
That's amazing. That's so exciting for them. And I'm sure it'll just continue to grow as the years progress and you guys get further in. So kudos to you guys for doing that.
Thank you. And thank you to the retailers for supporting it. And we're
Yeah.
actually starting a new campaign called What is Your 2 Cents? Right. And to really drive home, sometimes some of the people will stay away from fair trade because they think it's an added cost,
Mm-hmm.
but it really boils down to less than 2 cents per avocado
Wow.
and can make these differences in the farm worker community. So we're going to
Yeah,
be
that's
rolling
huge.
that out here in the next few weeks.
Very, very cool. I'm looking forward to learning more about that. Is that a fair trade across fair trade as a whole, or is that exclusively to GLC Cerritos?
That is something that we're doing on our own, but I know a couple other people have, we've shared it with them, and a couple others are really trying to drive home that the fair trade premium is not incredibly burdensome when you break it down to the
Yeah,
single per unit cost.
that sounds amazing. I think that that's going to just explode for you. I really hope it does.
Thank you.
Because any funds that you can add to the farmers or to the growers down there, to the people packing and so forth, it's so beneficial. So good job. Can you tell me what you think the future looks like for Jalisco's role as far as Mexico's exports? You know, they're newly certified or have been for a little while. Acreage continues to grow. What do you see happening in the next few years?
What I see happening over the next few years with Jalisco and Mexico in general is that it helps Mexico just become that much more of a year-round player, right? So and that's not only by adding acreage. So the mission of GLC Cerritos, Amanda, is to inspire fellow growers through sustainability to grow healthy food, right? So we want to show our neighbors that you can do more in terms of sustainability. So for example, the average productivity of a Hass avocado farm in Mexico and also in the world is about 7,000 pounds per acre, which really isn't very much. We know avocados can produce more than that. GLC Cerritos, we're about 3 times that, in about the 20,000 pounds per acre range. That tends to be larger fruit because of some intensive farming techniques. So yes, the farms are in a good area. Yes, the soils are good. But there's also different things like fertigation, annual pruning. This isn't necessarily passive 20th century avocado farming. It's more intensive 21st century 21st century avocado farming. It's through that it's through those productivity gains that we're going to be able to grow the market. So the avocado market in the US grew at about 15% per year in terms of volume from 1997 to 2015. That was largely done simply by authorizing orchards that were already in the ground.
Right.
Mexico's a big country. They consume a lot of avocados, so there was already a pre-existing large industry before the US opened. Over time, we added existing acreage, and by 2015, about 90% of the avocado farms in Michoacan were certified for the United States. So you can't just go out and plant another 40,000 acres year after year after year, right? So in order to get more avocados to the final consumer, we have to find ways to get more fruit per unit of land, water, labor, fertilizer, and that's entirely possible. And our mission is to share with our neighbors how we do that.
Yeah, that's amazing that you're able to do 3 times the amount per acreage. So I know you guys are using BloomX crossbee electrostatic pollination technology. Can you tell me what that is and explain how that is used in your farming practices?
Absolutely. So avocados are not very good at self-pollination, right? That's part of the problem on the 7,000 pounds per acre. And the flower will open twice, once as a male and once as a female. It's A and B.
Yes,
And
but it's so
one time
tiny.
they release pollen, and the other time it's receptive to the pollen, right? And so there's different ways to play with that. You can bring in bees, you can have pollinator varieties, which would be maybe you put in 10% of the trees are non-Hass if you're a
Mhm.
Hass farmer, and you choose a bee flower that opens as a male when the A flower of the Hass opens as a female, and hope to get some cross-pollination that way. Or you can use this new technology, this BloomX that we're working on this year,
Mhm.
moves the pollen from the male flowers to the female flowers through electrostatic technology. And so we're working with that. We'll see. We will have the final numbers after the harvest. It looks promising, but we need to move beyond anecdotal evidence and get some hard numbers on how the control blocks did versus the BloomX blocks, and we'll be happy to share that with everybody after the harvest.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I know the bee population just keeps dropping and dropping. My family, we have a small farm in Missouri, like I was telling you about earlier, and I actually tried to have my own hive last summer, tried to get that going, and it didn't survive the winter. So anything that can help is going to be beneficial to all. That's really exciting, and I can't wait to hear more about that and what your results are. I had the great pleasure of meeting Saul Medina, the owner of GLC Cerritos, if I'm correct in saying that. Yes. And something that he said to me, just really stuck with me, was really profound. He's obviously a very wise man, and it was kind of a bold statement, but he said, "I don't mind competition. What I can't stand is incompetence." And yeah, what are the biggest mistakes and incompetencies that you see in our industry and in the avocado industry in particular?
Ooh, that's a tough one. What are the biggest incompetencies?
Mistakes.
I think what Saul brings and he started out as a berry farmer, right? And that is a much more intensive farming than avocado farming, right?
Hmm.
There's much more sensitive. The shelf life of the fruit is much shorter, and it takes a tremendous attention to detail to be successful in berry farming. And they farm not just one berry, but four different berry varieties. And he brings that intensity to the avocado farming. So I think the incompetence would probably be a passivity. If you look at the Cerritos orchards, they're very, very uniform, despite the fact that they're not using clonal rootstocks. So they just have their farming techniques, their pruning, their irrigation, create very, very uniform orchards. And that leads to where they have the productivity gains that we've.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It was such a pleasure to meet him, and yeah, really just a great man. All in all, I can say I
No,
was
it's a great
thrilled
family.
to
I've known the
have him.
family
Yeah.
and worked with the family for over 20 years. And it's a very unique opportunity.
Yes, I can imagine. And congratulations for getting that. You've worked with some of the biggest, one of well-known names in the industry. What led you to working with GLC Cerritos?
I took a little sabbatical, worked over in the processing tomato industry in California Central Valley, which is a whole different animal, whole different
Mhm.
scale, whole different commercial model, and got a call from Saul. And, Jalisco was just opening for the United States. He wanted to learn more, asked if I could help. And that was almost 4 years ago when he first made that initial phone call.
That's awesome. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
What an opportunity. What an opportunity. So, on a more personal note, I'm sure like me, your phone is dinging from morning till night. There's emails going all the time. How do you manage stress, and how do you avoid burnout during those busy times?
Just being passionate about the product that we're doing, I think makes it exciting, and the opportunities for growth, and the fact that just having been part of that growth from that tenfold growth from 300 million pounds to 3 billion pounds, watching, and then the satisfaction from watching the economic development in some of these towns and villages for opportunities for the people that live there that they never would have had were it not for this globalized agriculture that we have today. So a lot of people who might have been first in their family to graduate from high school, and through some of the education opportunities, through the new export oriented produce activities going on in some of these rural areas, now they've had opportunities to travel to Asia, to travel to Europe, to come up to the United States. And those opportunities never would have existed were it not for the industry that they're involved in. And that's been very satisfying.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's wonderful that keeps you going day in and day out. And I'm still, still trying to figure out how to manage the stress of it all, and being a mom and being a wife and formerly a caretaker. Really do have to love the game to keep going. I'm happy to hear that you still love it after all these years. So what would be your advice to somebody new looking to get into the import game?
I would say just ask a lot of questions. That's, but networking, asking questions, following up, not being afraid. That would be my recommendation. Like curiosity more than anything about, why is this done this way? What is the seasonality? And just trying to learn as much as you can.
You work with your family as well, correct? You work with your wife and daughter. They help you to sell the crop. How has
Yeah,
that been working
it's
with
a very unique. So it's a family business down in Mexico with the Medinas, and they've allowed us to start kind of a family business up here, which is very unique.
Do you enjoy the day to day? I always enjoyed working with my dad, so I'm sure your
Yeah,
daughter.
it's been fun, and then starting the satisfaction too from starting from scratch and then watching the evolution has been very, very satisfying. And then being involved with an organization that really takes pride in doing things the right way, right? So
Mhm.
it's you can go in with confidence to a meeting and talk about, you know, we have the we have the vertical integration from, 3,000 acres of avocado farms to the packing house. We have the critical mass to take care of GLC Cerritos this last year. Even though it's relatively new to the US market, it's
Mhm.
actually one of the top 6 avocado exporters in Mexico. The geographic diversity of being in Jalisco, I think can be really important in a sourcing strategy. So you don't have all of your eggs in one basket should something happen in terms of the weather or something happen in terms of anything else that might limit trade from a certain region. By diversifying and having sourcing in different regions can add value. And then the sustainability. So we can go into a meeting, say, look, all these farms they're all Global Gap certified. Only 1% of Mexican avocado farms have Global Gap. That sets us apart. They're all Rainforest Alliance certified. So if you've heard any stories, you can count that the Rainforest Alliance certification adds a level of confidence that the fruit is coming from areas that are being respected. And then the fair trade just is another layer. And we recently enrolled in the ethical charter implementation program where we got our farms all enrolled, where we got enrolled as a supplier. And that ESIP program, I think, is kind of the next one to just kind of give a stamp of approval that working with this organization is a good business decision.
Yes, definitely sounds like it. So do you only pack out of Jalisco or do you pack out of Michoacan as well?
So the packing facility where the fruit is physically placed into a box
Mhm.
is done in Jalisco, but the fruit comes from both states.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. Is avocado oil one of the next things that you guys are going to get into? That's a big growing industry, especially right now as seed oils kind of find its way out.
It is a growing industry in Mexico. The processed industry, be it guacamole or be it oil, is growing, but it's really two different businesses, right? So you've got one business is on the fresh side, and that has one set of buyers in the marketplace.
Yes.
A set of buyers for frozen product or for oils is a whole nother part of the store, right? So it's not necessarily dealing with the produce side, it's dealing with another side. So those would be very, very different industries, and we're focused on the fresh side.
That's something I'm interested in particular. I think that's just going to be a booming business in the very near future. And if anybody could get avocado oil into like a 5 gallon jug or something easy to maneuver, it'd be a hit. Just an idea. If you weren't in the avocado business, which I know you've been your whole life, but if you weren't, what else would you be doing instead?
Well, I was over in the Central Valley with tomatoes for a couple of years. I don't really know. It's been really satisfying and I've enjoyed it. I don't have a good answer for that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I would say to that as well. Uh, a little bit more about you. What's a daily habit or routine that keeps you grounded on the day to day?
That's another hard question. Working with the family, but we moved back to our hometown a few years ago, so that's been nice after doing a tour of California, both south and north for about 15 years. So a lot of it's just good to be back home.
Yes, where's home for you?
Santa Maria, California.
Nice, nice. I don't think that I've ever been there, but I'm sure it's very nice. It's always nice to go back home. I actually just went back to Texas recently and got to go to South Padre Island and stay in McAllen and go to the shed, and it was wonderful. It was so nice to be back home, and that feeling is, something you don't forget. Is there anything that you wanted to add to the conversation that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, I think a couple of things you asked earlier. You opened with, what's Jalisco doing to change Mexico's presence in the U.S.? Right now, Saul Medina is he was elected chairman of APEA Hall, which is the Jalisco Avocado Grower
Hmm.
Shipper Association. And really his mandate is to get more areas of the state authorized to ship to the United States. So about 1/3 of GLC's orchards
Hmm.
are not able to ship avocados to the United States. So we still
Wow.
have to send a lot of fruit to Canada, a lot of fruit to Asia. But if we can work with the Mexican agricultural authorities, if we can work with USDA, the goal is to get more areas within Jalisco authorized to ship to the States. That will add to Mexico's volume. And I anticipate over the next few years, we'll see other growing regions in Mexico, such as Mexico State,
Okay.
and possibly Nayarit get allowed to ship up here as well. And then
Amazing.
the last thing is we are going to be publishing our first sustainability report at the end of this month, and we're really proud about that. We hired a sustainability director, Armando Garcia, and he really makes sure that we are not satisfied with the status quo, but continues to find new projects for us to work on as a company in part of the culture of continuous improvement.
I'm sure it'll just continue to get better and better for you guys as the years progress. You touched on something. You're actually running for a position on the Mejia board. Can you tell me a
I
little bit
am.
about that?
Yeah. So what it was there was my grandmother told me that we in one year, the year after my grandfather died, she had to sell avocados for a penny a pound back in the late 1950s. So in the early 60s, the California industry formed a state marketing order,
Uh-huh.
which turned into today is called the California Avocado Commission, where the farmers assess themselves a portion of the value of the crop to be used in promotions. And that helped make the industry successful for a number of years. And as I alluded to earlier, when California was 90% of the avocados sold in the United States, that worked real well. Chile was starting to come in the early 90s, and that was absorbed fairly successfully. But over time, you would see because of that success, they planted more, right? So they were going to go from a 2-month off-season option to there was one year where they were here for 50 out of 52 weeks, right? And so watching all the new orchards go in Chile, knowing that NAFTA was coming and Mexico was going to gain access to the United States with their 300,000 acres of avocados, convinced us that we had to do a federal marketing order, right? So I did my thesis at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo on the need for a federal marketing order, and that eventually became the Hass Avocado Board. All avocados, whether they're from California, Chile, Mexico, Peru, all are assessed 2.5 cents per pound. And then those monies are used to promote avocados in the US market. And then each of the countries gets to control most of the money that they put in. So for Mexico, it goes to the Mexican Hass Avocado Importers Association. And, they've done some great stuff with
Mhm.
from NASCAR to the Super Bowl in promoting avocado consumption.
Yeah, it's just exploded since then.
Yeah.
Do you think the assessment is too high?
It has not increased since it was implemented. It was implemented over 20 years ago, 22 years ago.
Do you think with all the success that they've had, like it could potentially come down, or do you see it just continuing to stay the same?
There was an attempt last year or a year or 2 years ago to increase it.
Mm-hmm.
That was voted down by the growers. I think if it were to be decreased significantly, that wouldn't necessarily be good for the industry. So, I go back to, Mr. Wrigley, the founder of the gum empire, once said
Mm-hmm.
that he knew that half of the money, 50% of the money that he spent on advertising was a complete waste, right? And he just didn't know which half, right? So it's the promotions help to keep avocados top of mind. Some may or may not be more successful than others, but they're notoriously difficult to measure which ones work and which ones don't.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I'm in the process, me and multiple companies that import limes, we're in the process of building a national lime board, and the talk about the assessment has come up. And so, that's why I'm curious about whether you thought it was too high, too low, whether it should stay the same. Would you change it? And I think you've answered that for me. So thank you.
Mhm.
Any advice for somebody starting a board? Since you've helped to start so many.
Experience it helps. So having a blend of industry veterans and industry newbies, because you need some experience, and you also need some creativity on why not kind of thinking. So if you can get a good blend on the board and people that are looking out for the good of the entire industry. So you have to be able, whoever's involved has to be able to take off their personal or their company hat,
Uh-huh.
and when they're sitting at that board table, be thinking about, okay, what's good, not just for me personally, but for the entire industry.
And that's why they should vote for you, right? For the Mejia board.
Well, thank you for that plug, Amanda.
Yeah, you're welcome. Votes are due when? August the 1st.
August 1st.
August 1st. So vote for Giovanni. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to spend this time with me and kind of deep dive into everything that you guys are doing. And I think you guys are just making waves within the avocado industry. Are you the first avocado packer to have fair trade certification?
No, I tried to do fair trade 10 years ago
Out of
and
Mexico. Out of Mexico,
out
I
of
mean.
Mexico, and it was difficult to get
Uh-huh.
because on the retailer side, there were not very many interested, and so there was kind of demand on one or two sizes.
Uh-huh.
And so the growers were a little frustrated by that they felt like they did a lot of work, but were only getting the premium on a portion of their.
Uh-huh.
And then, in Michoacan, the average avocado farm is only about 5 acres. And so it was difficult we put together a couple of co-ops that, some weeks had fruit and some weeks didn't. And so having the critical mass for both sides of the equation were difficult. What is unique about GLC Cerritos is that we have the critical mass. With the 3,000 acres of avocados, we're able to put together a continuous program from, we start harvesting in May and we harvest, through March. So and then, we have identified other fair trade growers offshore and in Mexico. So they're, to cover some of those gaps, but it's having that critical mass really makes a significant difference in being able to have a regular program. And then other retailers have come in buying a bigger portion of the tree. So instead of 5 or 10% of the sizes going out, being able to sell, large fruit and small fruit, maybe eventually some second grade fruit will pay dividends in the future.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. Well, I am so grateful to you for coming here today and spending a little bit of time with me and telling me about your history and everything that you are doing and what GLC Cerritos is doing. I've been an admirer from afar for quite a while, or for the last, 4 years, and seeing what you're doing and looking forward to what's next for you guys. So I would like to say thank you again. Maybe we can do this again sometime. You can tell me how the electrostatic pollination test went. I'd love to learn more
We
about that.
should get those results later this year.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And we'll take care, everyone, and tune in to the next Importer Insight coming very, very soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.